Okay.
It's okay. It was wrong. All right. So, fighting against a sword and shield, especially a heater shield, there's a couple things you want to do. The big things I find are that you have a couple things that are your advantage that they don't think are your advantage. The biggest one being is that their shield is really your shield. So just assume and always think it's your shield, because all it's going to do is get in their way once you actually engage this. Second thing is you're going to be fighting them at close range. Generally speaking, there are tricks and things you can do at long range. You can stab them, all that stuff. Mostly that's to slow them down. If you get a kill from it, great. But you guys probably should all know that, at least in part, because you've probably done that already. So really what you want to know is what to do with them in close. So the big thing for me with closeness is, and I've mentioned this a bunch of other places, is deception is kind of key on all this stuff. When I want to set somebody up to get my footwork right, I look them in the eyes to keep their attention on me. If you make eye contact with someone, they tend to look back, especially if you keep looking at them in the eyes. So they won't want to look away. And if they do, you'll know immediately if they look away. So you can kind of get that. Like, she's looking down my arm, and then she's looking at my feet for a second. But and if they do that too much, then you can do stuff like this way out of range, where you get their attention again, like just waggle it at them and things. It'll work. People tend to focus on the shiny. So the thing is, you want to be a little bit out of range. Like right here, you're well out of her range, right? And I'm easily in range for a thrust for me. So ideally, I'd want to be a little bit further away if I wasn't sure, especially. So initially, start lined up like you normally would, where you're basically like, she's trying to give me what I want. If you're mostly square, hip to hip, inside, outside, on each side of the hip, is lined up with hers. Now, what I really want to be is not that way at all. So I'm going to move around a bit at range, kind of decide, hide what I'm doing a bit, try to do that, but I'm keeping the eye contact, and I'm trying to keep this part of my body lined up with the same piece of her body. However, these two are no longer lined up the same way. I'm straddling her front leg. Ideally, she won't have noticed this. But even if she did, but doesn't know what I'm doing, that's fine too. It has to be basically what I want. Is I want that because I'm going to need it for a pivot in a minute. And if I'm over here more, that makes this pivot a lot harder to get as deep as I want. Because if she comes forward, go ahead and just come forward. If I try to go from here, I'm not going to get as deep as I want because my feet were too close to her center line. So go ahead and go back. So if I keep moving around, if I get around here, now I'm a little more straddled. Maybe that's a little over top. So now if I'm here, and I can get her to trigger to go when I want, throw something, I can step way out here. So even when she tries to course correct, it works to my advantage. So now you can see kind of how the shield is my shield. No, come back. Stand guard. All right. See how the shield's blocking pretty much everything on my right side and most of my body. Everything's in my left leg, bits of my head, and my left arm. Now, my guard is such that I've got my hand across the point of her shield on the heater. Move the forearm and elbow, kind of making contact when necessary. Mostly as a brace, and to push back over. Now, if her sword stays here, which is a typical response for people, they use this to try to protect themselves. There is a shot, well, it's easier adjusting it then. There was a shot when she had it flat. Like you can make this shot happen somewhat, but it's hard to get that one quite right, so you're not really in the best spot for it yet. And if she tries to throw a backhand, it's not going to get there. And it has to go through my weapon. And even if she tries to go for the angle, it's super, super easy. If she tries to go for a flat snap, super easy block. If she tries to go for a wrap, not the easiest of the blocks, but still not really hard either. Because you're going to see that coming a mile away. It's the slowest shot she can throw. So you're going to see it, and you only have to move a few inches. And if it gets really bad, you can roll under your weapon. And rolling under your weapon is kind of a key thing a lot of times with the blocks. A lot of people just want to reach for them, but if you can move with it to get around it, that's a lot faster. Because not only are you moving your arms, but you're also moving your body.
Can I get you to come back in so we can see that hand position and so on?
Sure.
When you're in close?
All right. Go ahead and start at range. All right. So if we're out here like this, you kind of set them up a bit. Use something to get them to trigger. Now from here...
Again, you can't see the hands.
Rotate counterclockwise.
There.
Sorry. So you get a little bit of that, where you get a little bit of the arm, a little bit of the hand. The hand, you generally want it higher than your shield, the leading hand, because that gives you, that's where you're, it's like a boat, a boat, you have a channel lock for the oar. It's kind of the same deal here. That's your pivoting point.
Oh.
So where you want to get the shots, all of that's going to come from there.
Okay.
So if I'm down here,
right,
I can't do that. None of that's there. I can kind of get this one a bit, but then I'm fighting against her shield. When I'm over at just that couple of inches, that gives me all types of stuff. And that's without even using any body. That's just using your hands. To actually make the shot work, and some people will be like, well, you can't move your arm, you can't get any power. I'm actually gonna hit you this time. And that's not really hard. That's just a mediocre level power, because all that is twisting my hips and driving my shoulder a little bit. If you really want to be powerful with it, you just continue to lean that through and twist more of your knees. But that's mean to do to someone that's not actually fighting, so I don't want to beat up my spotter that badly. So, but if you're here, especially, you can take and use your elbow and your arm a little bit to control that shield a touch. Like, just all you really have to do is deny it movement. You don't have to really move it around so much, but if it's there, you can just go here and hold it. And that's not really, it's gonna be a problem. You're not really grappling it, you're not grabbing it. It just happens to be in the way. And considering the amount of times I've been shoved by a shield all over the place, I'm not gonna find that as particularly objectionable. You can't hurt them, they can't hurt you. You're not really grabbing it. So from there, you have a couple options. If for some reason you can't get your shot off, if you can't do the step back from here and then finish the shot, if that's just not there for you for whatever reason, and you need to fight it out more, bring it across, which looks like that. That ties them up a little bit more. You get a little bit of a brace. You still have a shot out of this. And people tend to forget that pretty quickly until you hit them a few times. But you've got some leverage on their shield. You know, you can pull it down with the rattan from there. You've got hers blocked up against her chest, which makes leverage really problematic. So you can't just pull away too easily because you've got a little bit of a point up here holding it, and you've got a point down here. So you got 2 points on her shield, or sword, I mean. So that's going to make it where she's going to have to pull it down to recover. And you'll notice when she does that, what she does, she kind of pulls her head over. A lot of people do that too. So you can have a choice here. You can choose to go with it. So if she pulls it, you can try to finish that off to there and try to drive her head from there. Which if you do that, you got to make sure you don't just reach for it. You want to make sure you're twisting your weight into that. You're going to have to end up dropping your knees a bit, and you're going to want to drive that with your shoulder. Driving it with your shoulder puts a lot of your body weight into the weapon. If you, at the end of the day of the fighting, if your arms are tired from throwing your weapon around, in my opinion, you did it wrong. You can have a tired arm from thrusting, but you're not going to have a tired arm from throwing cut shots. So, now let's say for some reason you can't get that shot. You know, maybe she's in a bad spot, maybe gets goofed up. Well, then you can wait for her to try to see what she does. You can go to there, and then now you've got a couple things here. Her sword's low, which you can kind of be paying attention to it, which obviously you should be, because you got to know where the enemy's weapon is. You can try to come straight back up from here, but you're going to possibly be facing a return shot, because that's what she should have been setting up for, is a return shot. So you don't want to do this. As tempting as that may be, and it does work sometimes, it's not the best way to do that. The better way to do that is to do that. Because what this does for you, one, I get to use my body weight. This kind of uses your body weight some, but this lets me drive my left shoulder around and bring that weight around again this way, which is a nice solid move. Plus it sets up another move if you miss. If I miss this way, I can come back this way right away. If I just do this, that's all or nothing. You killed them or you're screwed. So if I come down to here again, you're down so if you're in this kind of space and you want to go for the attack right away, you want to kind of do this, the kind of a shoveling. You want to try to block as much as you can. The shield is blocking most of this part for me. This part of the weapon is blocking pretty much over everything over here. Plus, given where the sword is, backhand to that point is pretty unlikely. Most likely shots are a wrap or a possible flat snap, but the flat snap even has to recover pretty far to make it work, so it's probably a wrap. So if she's down there and she tries to go for a wrap, it's not too hard to intercept it in some fashion. And you don't have to bleed tons of it. If you can catch it completely, great. But if you just follow it up pretty bad, it'll probably screw it up. Now, the other thing is, go back down. The reason you don't do that again is because the weapon can come up. And when you do this, you'll see that you can actually basically roll the weapon into it while you're trying to kill someone. And since our weapon is a defensive weapon and an offensive weapon at the same time, the more times that you can do that, the better. So if you use chess, which we all play, the best moves you can make in chess usually are forks, because you're going to take something. If you put a horse on there and you have one piece here and one piece there and it can hit both of them, your opponent can choose which one they want to lose, but they're going to lose. You want to put them in situations with this as much as possible. They're the same way. You know, you're going to have to give up something. Your shot's going to go awry, or I'm going to kill you, or maybe both. You know, that'd be ideal. You don't want to give them free lunches ever, because you start with an advantage. So don't give it up. You know, you have range to start, always. You know, unless they're a mutant and they're 7 foot tall and a giant. But then you have a different advantage. You just have to take advantage of it. But if you're an average person, you're going to have range on the start. You're going to do something with that range initially. You're going to thrust at them, you're going to cut at them, you're going to trigger them to jump you, whatever you want to do from there. That's still using it to your advantage, even if you don't throw a shot first. You can still set people up. To use a statement like you get out of jiu-jitsu and wrestling, you have position over submission. If you try to kill people, and you've all done this, including myself, where you've taken that shot from somebody where you're out here reaching for them because you see the opening too soon, and you end up throwing a tip shot, or you miss, you do something horrible with it. It's not great. But if you had waited one more step, another couple heartbeats, bam, you know, they're done. And it didn't change. Nothing in that changed. Their defense didn't improve. Nothing went there. You just gave it a little more time to make the better shot happen. If you're going to go through with something on this, and especially the abuse you take to learn this, if I can get to here and I know I've got a shot, but it's better if I do this, because the shot for her side is gone, at least for the moment. And I didn't change my ability to throw the shot. I can still come through and do that. All right? I can do a whole bunch of things. I can try to come over. I can do all that kind of stuff. I can do here. I can do that kind of stuff. But I'm controlling the weapon as much as possible, as often as possible. It makes surviving this stuff a lot easier. And that's probably, I would say, the thing that surprises people the most when they haven't fought me before, when they're sword and shield, is the fact that they throw 2 or 3 shots and I'm still not only there, but actively fighting back. I'm not in a panic, I'm not running away. I'm trying to find openings to hit them. So, and then if you add in a few other little technique things, you can start hitting the back, and then that causes them to slow down. So, on a similar note, when you have great weapons, sword and shield has deception, for sure. But all great weapons use a lot of deception. The more you can deceive someone, the more it slows down their reaction time. You break them out of their patterns, you break them out of their comfort zone. All of those things make it harder for them. So they have to think more. When they think more, they're slower. And when they're slower, you can kill them. And if you train yourself well enough, you think less. So you can get to more of a closer to a no-mind state, which is a great way to do things. And I'm sure you've all done that before too, where you just saw an opening with bam and killed them. Never any active thought in that. You just did it because you trained it a bunch. That's a great way to go. But having the ability to put in simple plans and then let the actual shots resolve themselves is important. So you have to kind of build these ahead of time. I'm only going to show you one trick shot tonight, just because it's one you all need to know how to do, and I need everybody in the world to know how to beat it. Because the circle jerk is basically a shot that's used east of the Mississippi to death, to the point where people don't use it much anymore because it's just too easy to beat. But the more I've traveled west, here, outlands, you guys don't use it. So it's a pretty basic shot for us, but it's working pretty well against people that shouldn't here, and it's simple to beat. So I'll show you that one, then we'll go on from there. So a circle jerk, basically, is in its simplest form. You start out of range. Like, I can't cut her from here, right? I want to be enough of a threat that it seems like I could, but I just can't. So I need that little bit of range as fudge range to adjust it. And I'll start out here threatening, and I'll make it look like it's a cut to her face, right? So what I want to do is I want to go past her eyes, right? Maybe not quite that far, that's exaggeration for example, but I want to go past the eyes, and if that shield tracks with me at all, I roll it around, back up into the head.
C-shot.
Yeah. Most people will step in when that happens, because they've been mostly trained to block or somehow get that first shot from the pole arm, knock it aside, and run up. But they're being suckered in, it's a lure. So if they do that, it's bad news for them. The way it's beaten is you simply don't drop your shield, you bring it up or anything, and you walk in, right? So if I do the same thing all over again, and I just do that, it cuts the angle on it pretty severely. And sometimes you can adjust it a little bit in flight to make it work. But if they don't bite on that shot, you can use it as a fake or a setup, but you need to bail on that shot in particular and move on to something else, which you can do. But that shot works ridiculously well sometimes. So it's a good thing to know. It is a trick shot though. It's not one of my... You can build a bunch of trick shots in your repertoire, but having the solid foundation first is a better thing. But that one in particular, everybody should know that. You can also use it against full arms. And, well, all full weapons really. You just start outside the range of the weapon and make a bigger circle, and if they bat at it at all, you kill them.
Yeah, so I've had more success using it as a fake to the leg and up the other side.
Yep, you can fake from anywhere. It just, all you need to do is, I mean, the head is a common one, knee is a good one because they think it's a leg shot.
Yeah.
You can literally do it over here. They'll bite on it sometimes.
In fencing, that's pretty much a disengage.
There's a lot of polearm and fencing crossover, for sure. So the differences are that the way we do our disengages are a little bit different than theirs because it's two-handed. Also, the way our weapons can roll over each other is a little different than theirs because they have edges and flats. Ours are round, so they can be fun things. So let's see, face the circle jar, face that. So to go over again real quick, if we're at range for the sword and shield, and you move around to get into that, I almost always want to trigger my person when I want them to move. Gives me a bigger advantage on knowing how and what I can do. If they run on their own, you can still do things, but if they go on their own, I generally tilt towards the more defensive thought process than I do the offensive because they're not at my leisure at that point. So if she just starts moving, I'm probably going to do that. Because I was basically looking at them, okay, there's not an immediate backhand coming, so I'm just going to shield up, go behind the shield, get there, and then cut off as much as I can for the most obvious shots, which the automatic ones are the wrap, the flat snap, and the backhand. So these are mostly caught, or they're close enough to caught by default that I don't have to move too much to make them work no matter what she changes. You don't want to get in a TikTok fight with people in general. If they start to go on to that too much, what you can do is if you get to here and they start going crazy with the TikToks back and forth, you can do that to a point, but you need to throw something and then get the heck out. And generally I would suggest going in a curve around the shield because it'll force her to do what she just did there. She'll have to turn around. If she doesn't turn around, then you got a free shot in the back of her head, which is fine too. I mean, ideally, that'd be great. Doesn't always work that way. So that's kind of a big one. I think for the moment, that's pretty much the stuff I can think of off the top of my head. So why don't you guys line up real quick and we'll have you walk through the slow part of trying to do the shield closing on you and the adjustment. Do basically the same thing, don't finish the shots. And the same thing with her, she's not wearing all of her armor. So don't really try to go for power, don't try to finish them, just try to get the movement right. Don't worry about winning, don't worry about speed. Just try to think about what you're doing as far as where your feet are, where your setup is, where your hands are, where your arms are at the end, and the pivot. That's the important stuff. 1, 2, 3,
4, 5, 6. Okay, we got 6 people. That means we need all of us involved to do this, half with shields and half without.